Stop right there. That voice in your head, it's not wisdom. It's fear wearing a tuxedo. Overthinking doesn't make you smart. It makes you stuck. And today that ends. I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to wake you up. Because the life you want is on the other side of a single decision. Never overthink. Momentum is the invisible force that separates those who talk about their dreams from those who live them. The moment you stop moving, doubt steps in and takes control. Overthinking doesn't arrive loudly. It creeps in quietly, disguised as preparation, disguised as being responsible, disguised as being smart. But the truth is brutal and simple. While you're thinking, life is moving. Opportunities do not wait for certainty. They respond to action. Momentum is built by doing, not by debating. And the longer you stand still, the heavier it becomes to take that first step. Every great shift in life begins with movement, not mastery. You don't need to know the entire path to take the first step. They're not magic. Yet overthinking convinces you that you do. It tells you that if you just analyze a little more, research a little longer, you'll feel ready. But readiness is not something you think your way into. It's something you earn by moving forward. Motion creates feedback, and feedback creates clarity. Without motion, there is no data, no growth, no direction. Only fear looping endlessly in your mind. Overthinking kills momentum because it replaces instinct with insecurity. Instead of trusting what you know, they're not magic, you start questioning everything. You replay conversations that haven't happened, anticipate failures that haven't occurred, and imagine outcomes that don't exist. Meanwhile, the people who are winning are not smarter than you. They're just moving. They make decisions before fear has time to negotiate. They understand that speed is power, and hesitation is a silent surrender. Momentum doesn't ask for permission. It rewards courage. When you take action, even imperfect action, you activate something deeper than logic. You activate belief. Every step forward sends a signal to your mind, I can do this. That signal compounds. Confidence grows not from success, but from consistency. Overthinking interrupts that process. It convinces you to wait for certainty instead of creating it. And certainty never comes before movement. It follows it. They're not magic. The longer you overthink, the harder it becomes to start. That's the trap. Momentum works both ways. Forward motion builds energy, but stagnation builds resistance. What felt like a small decision yesterday becomes a heavy burden today. You begin to label opportunities as missed instead of available. And soon enough, hesitation becomes your default. Not because you lack ability, but because you trained yourself to stop instead of start. Momentum is in the beguiling but unstoppable once it's alive. That first step is the hardest because it breaks the cycle of thought and replaces it with action. Once you move, the noise quiets, the fear fades, the path reveals itself. Overthinking loses its grip when you refuse to stand still. Movement is the cure. Motion is the answer, not magic. Perfection is one of the most dangerous illusions ever created because it convinces you that delay is discipline, tells you that waiting is wisdom, holding back is maturity, that one more revision will suddenly make everything flawless. But perfection never arrives. It keeps shifting the finish line just far enough to keep you frozen. No, they're not magic. While you're polishing plans in your head, life is passing you by, rewarding those who were brave enough to begin before they felt ready. The pursuit of perfection is rooted in fear, not excellence. Fear of being judged, fear of failing publicly, fear of not being enough. So instead of risking imperfection, you choose comfort. You hide behind preparation, research, and homo day. But growth has never been born from comfort. The most powerful transformations come from action taken in uncertainty, not from waiting for conditions that will never be ideal. Imperfect action is how confidence is built. Every step forward, even the wrong ones, teaches you something valuable. You gain clarity through experience, not contemplation. Perfectionists want guarantees before they move. But life doesn't offer guarantees. It offers feedback. And feedback only comes when you show up. The people you admire didn't start polished. They started polished, committed. Perfection paralyzes creativity. When you're obsessed with getting it right, you stop experimenting. You stop taking risks. You stop learning. You trade momentum for control and a control for safety. But safety is expensive. It costs you your potential. The moment you allow yourself to be imperfect, you unlock freedom. Freedom to try. Freedom to fail. Freedom to grow faster than you ever could by waiting. Progress, not perfection, is what creates momentum. Small, messy steps compound over time into massive results. The world doesn't reward the most refined ideas. It rewards the ones that are executed. Nobody remembers the flawless plan that never left your mind. They remember the imperfect action that changed something. Every move you make strengthens your belief in yourself, and belief is the foundation of confidence. Perfection is a story told by hesitation to justify inaction. The truth is simpler and more powerful. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You need to be willing. Willing to begin before you feel ready. Willing to be seen before you feel safe. Willing to trust that growth will meet you on the path, not before it. They're not magic. Every time you overthink, something subtle but powerful happens. You step away from who you are becoming. Overthinking isn't just a mental habit. It's an identity eroder. It teaches you to pause when you should move, to question when you should trust, to shrink when you should stand tall. At first it feels harmless, even responsible. They're not magic. But over time it reshapes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who acts and start seeing yourself as someone who waits. Your inner dialogue changes. Instead of saying, "I've got this," you begin saying, "What if I mess this up?" That shift is small but dangerous. The overthinking turns decisive people into hesitant ones by repeatedly sending the same message: you are not ready yet. And when you tell yourself that long enough, you start to believe it. Confidence doesn't vanish or erodes overnight. It erodes through 1,000 moments of hesitation. Identity is built through action. Every time you make a decision and follow through, they're not magic. You reinforce the belief that you are capable. Overthinking interrupts that loop. It replaces action with analysis and courage with caution. They are not magic. You begin to associate safety with inaction and risk with danger, even when risk is exactly what growth requires. Slowly, you lower your expectations of yourself, not because you lack potential, but because you've trained yourself to doubt it. Overthinking also distorts your sense of authority. You start deferring to opinions, waiting for validation, and no, not magic, looking outward for answers you already have. The more you do that, the quieter your own voice becomes. You stop leading your life and start reacting to it. Decisive people move with presence because they trust themselves. Overthinkers move with hesitation because they've surrendered that trust piece by piece. When you shrink your decisions, you shrink your standards. You settle for what feels safe instead of what feels true. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "Though, what won't get me judged?" That shift doesn't just limit your choices, it limits your self-respect. You begin to play small not because you want to, but because overthinking has convinced you that staying small is safer than standing out. Reclaiming your identity begins the moment you choose decisiveness over doubt. Each clear decision strengthens your sense of self. Each action taken without over-analysis restores confidence. You remember who you are when you move forward without asking permission from fear. And with every step, your identity expands. Not because the path is easy, but because you chose to walk it anyway. That first instinct you feel is not random. And it's not reckless. It is the result of everything you live, everything you've learned, and everything you've survived. Before fear has time to interrupt, before doubt starts stacking questions, your intuition speaks with clarity. It doesn't scream, it doesn't argue. It simply knows. They're not magic. Overthinking begins the moment you ignore that voice and invite confusion into the room. The more you second guess, the more you distance yourself from the truth you already sensed. Your instincts are built from experience, not imagination. Every win, every loss, every mistake has trained your inner compass. But overthinking convinces you that your mind must run endless simulations before you're allowed to trust yourself. That's not intelligence. That's insecurity pretending to be logic. Doubt doesn't come from lack of information. It comes from lack of self-trust. When you pause too long, fear gets a vote. And fear always votes against your growth. The first answer is usually the honest one. It comes before you worry about judgment, before you calculate how others might respond, before you shrink yourself to fit expectations. Overthinking layers fear on top of truth until you can no longer recognize your own voice. You start asking for opinions, not because you need guidance. They're not magic, but because you're afraid to stand alone in your decision. And every time you do that, you teach yourself to distrust what you felt in the first place. They're not magic. Intuition operates faster than your doubts because it isn't trying to protect your comfort. It's trying to protect your potential. Doubt, on the other hand, is obsessed with safety. It wants guarantees. It wants approval. It wants zero risk. But growth has never lived in safe spaces. The people who move forward in life are not the ones with the least fear. They're the ones who refuse to let fear override their inner knowing. Overthinking weakens instinct through repetition. The more you ignore your first response, the quieter it becomes. And know that not magic. Eventually, you don't even hear it anymore. You start believing you're indecisive or unsure, when in reality, you've just trained yourself to hesitate. Instinct is like a muscle. Use it, and it strengthens. Ignore it, and it fades. Trust is built by honoring that initial pull, even when it scares you. When you act on your first instinct, you reclaim authority over your own life. You stop outsourcing decisions to fear, to people, to circumstances. You stand rooted in self-belief. Even when the outcome isn't perfect, the confidence you gain is priceless. Because every time you trust yourself and move, you reinforce the truth that you are capable, guided, and ready.